this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, folks.
Yep. And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
Brian is covered in glitter.
Yay. And Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
I am an FBI agent.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, and welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday.
We've all seen Aquaman and we love it.
Yep.
Especially Brian.
Oh,
That doesn't sound like me.
No?
That doesn't sound like the way things happen for me.
Oh,
It's
that's
in
not
your-
how you remember it?
I don't
Lisa?
know. We're recording our not top 10. You told me it was going to be in your dorkies, so it's definitely not going to be in your not top 10.
The views and comments expressed by Brad Gullickson may not necessarily be those expressed by everybody else. Brian, are you ready for our Fistful?
I think I am. I think I'm ready to go.
Wife dork,
Yes, locked and loaded.
mouth dork.
Yes, indeed.
I'm ready.
I'm
Surf's
like
up. Let's go.
pumping my, what was that?
You're pumping your what?
Oh my God.
What are you pumping?
In the 90s, there was like a thing.
Super Soaker?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm pumping my super soaker of a fistful.
What? Show me that expression again.
It was
Yeah.
a little bit of this
That's
action.
just
Trombone?
like a Super Soaker.
Trombone. It's like a little. It reminds me of
was a
those
little-
nun
Puppets?
punching dolls.
Yeah.
You're terrible at mimes.
I'm amazing.
It's called mimes, right?
Yeah.
Mimes?
I'm
Mimes.
pantomime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, good.
I got trained in the panto.
What? Brian. Can you start us off with your number 5 in your fistful of men in water? Is that it? Men in water.
Yeah,
right?
we haven't really
Yeah.
announced what our fistful is yet.
It's a fistful of men in water.
in honor of the
men
release
in
of
water
No.
or men of
No,
water?
men of water.
Of water.
Like Aquaman.
Right.
Aquaman is a man of water.
Oh.
He's also a man at sea.
That would
in-
also be a man of water. I would allow you to use that definition.
Okay.
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 I'm just saying the definition I'm using is
Okay.
men of water.
Okay.
Okay.
So with that, Brian,
Yes, yes.
your number 5.
Okay. So I guess that's in the men of water or at sea, but the finale of this film takes place underwater. That
Are
would
there
be,
men in it?
Yes, there is. Two men, two very handsome men, Charlie Hunnam and Idris Alba. This will be Pacific Rim, the finale that takes place underwater with with them fighting the kaiju in their Jaegers.
They're
underwater.
men of climactic water.
I like that. Climactic water.
They're underwater all the time.
Yeah. So this is a film, of course, directed by Guillermo del Toro, who's a favorite of the podcast.
Yeah.
We talk about him a lot, and this film, I mean, it's received, I think, pretty well. I mean, being a couple of years removed from Pacific Rim, I know we kind of talk about it as kind of the plot and the narrative of the story kind of being a little bit generic, kind of a little bit like Top Gun and Charlie Hunnam not really giving the greatest performance, or just the movie overall not really having really deep characterizations in it. But I think the aesthetic of the film and the designs of the Jaegers and the kaijus and what Del Toro was doing, you could definitely see the passion behind the project. And I thought it was very interesting the way he decided to have the third act of this film kind of take place. Because the ripple in Pacific Rim is in the Pacific Ocean, right at the bottom of the sea of the Pacific Ocean, where the kaiju come up from this portal or from this dimension. And for them to kind of go down there, and their plan is to really just kind of drop a bomb into that opening, to seal that. And it's pretty fascinating to see that battle take place underwater. I thought it was really, really cool to see something a little bit different that we haven't seen with kaiju.
Is
and
it the
giant.
first Pacific Rim where there's an explosion and then like the ocean disappears and then the water recedes back in?
That does sound familiar. I think that does happen.
I love
in
that
fight.
movie.
Yeah.
That's when Striker Eureka goes off.
Okay, so it is in the first film.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought that was just pretty cool. So yeah, that's my number 5 is Pacific Rim, the finale.
All right.
Okay.
Wife Dork.
Is that
Yes.
proof?
I'm not even going to. I'm going to move to Wife Dork. I'm going to let you have that one, B. I'm going to let you live today. Wife Dork, you're number 5.
My list.
My number 5 is a holiday film because
Yeah.
I am in the spirit of the holidays, and it is Oswald Cobblepot, played by Danny DeVito in
Man.
Batman Returns.
All right. Speaking of the devil.
Yes. So on Saturday night, Brad and I went to a holiday party at Lisa Bell Roden's house,
Yay.
and this was our second film of the night. The first film of the night was
Bell Book and Candle.
Bell Book and Candle, which I had never seen. Have you heard of Bell Book and Candle?
I've never heard of it.
It's
It's Kim Novak is a witch, and she casts a spell on Jimmy Stewart to fall in love with her. And then he learns that she's a witch and that he's under a spell, and he gets real mad. So she gives up witchcraft and starts crying, and then they fall in love.
well, the whole thing is like the whole thing is if you're a witch and you fall in love, you lose your powers, which is exactly how it is for women. When we fall in love, we do become ineffectual and weepy.
Oh.
So, yeah. Anyway, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the penguin. He was tossed into a stream by his parents, one of whom is Paul Rubens. And he's tossed Moses-like into the waters. He washes through the waters of the sewers, and somehow he ends up in a defunct zoo in the underground penguin enclosure. It totally makes Tim Burton sense. And yes,
I love those penguins.
before the podcast we were talking about this film and how it's not really like a Batman film origin story. A Batman film is more just like an origins of Penguin.
Yeah.
But I find Penguin to be a tremendously sympathetic character in this film.
Well, it's sympathetic, but also disgusting.
He is oozing from the mouth, which is really gross to me. And he's wearing like a really dirty onesie for most of the movie, where a lot of the grime is located on the crack of his butt.
Yeah.
And I just why am I staring at it? But I can't not look.
People talk about like Nicole Kidman in Destroyer, and they're like, "Oh, that's such a brave performance." Like, you want to see a brave performance? Danny DeVito as the Penguin. That's a brave performance.
Oh my gosh, him just like eating a fish, just like a fish.
Also, Michelle Pfeiffer swallowing a bird and letting it escape her mouth for one shot.
Oh.
Amazing
brave.
in
She did that for real?
1992.
Yeah. When she opens her mouth and the bird shoots out of her mouth, that's a real bird.
This was pre-PETA?
I mean, I don't know if it was
No way.
pre-PETA. Yeah, it's a real bird that she swallowed.
And she really put a bird in her mouth?
Yes.
Is that how bird flu got started?
I'm telling you, that bird
Michelle
definitely took a dump
Pfeiffer
down her
is-
throat.
No.
Ugh, they have cloacas. They have no control over that stuff. Well, I'm disgusted.
Me too.
But I love penguins. They're so cute.
All right. Well, so that counts, right, as a man of water?
I mean, I guess he's a man of water. He was reborn from the waters of the sewer.
And he lives in the water.
Yeah. He dies in the water.
Yeah.
All right. So that counts. You
Thanks.
pick Wife Dork. Brad, your number 5 in your men of water.
I'm being much more traditional in the sense of my men of water pick. I think these are heroes who are very much like Aquaman, soldiers of the sea. I'm talking about the Louis Teague movie from 1990, a classic starring Michael Biehn and Charlie Sheen. Talking about Navy SEALs.
And the late, great Bill Paxton.
And the late great Bill Paxton and Dennis Haysbert. It's traditionalists might call it terrible. They're mistaken. It was a landmark watershed movie for young Brad in 1990. Michael Biehn, of course, I was already in love with him because of The Terminator. and to see him lead an elite squad of badasses, including Charlie Sheen from Young Guns, it was a lot. It was a lot, and the action is extremely violent. They're carefree, reckless soldiers, but they're the carefree, reckless soldiers that we need out there in the seas and the land.
You know,
killing terrorists.
When that movie came out, I would tell myself, this is my unofficial G.I. Joe movie.
Yeah.
And I would think, like, when I would watch that movie, I would take that into
Michael Biehn is Duke. Charlie Sheen, Snake Eyes, obviously.
Yep.
Dennis Haysbert is Roadblock. And Rick Rossovich is
Flint.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, good pick, Brad. All right, my number 5 in the Men of the Sea or Men in the Water or whatever is David Hasselhoff, particularly from SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, because I was not a watcher of Baywatch, but I did see SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, and there's a scene in the movie where David Hasselhoff, I guess, is swimming. But SpongeBob, if I'm not mistaken, SpongeBob and Patrick are on his back, but he's not swimming in the traditional sense. He's swimming like if a dolphin were to jump out of the water and when they come back down, skip their body on the water like a rock. So David Hasselhoff is basically prone with his hands to his side, and he's like going through the ocean like that. It's a really cool image and a silly image. And stupid image, but I love it, and it makes me laugh. And yeah, why that it's in that movie is insane to me, but it's a SpongeBob movie, and so yeah, I can't count it out. But yeah, that's my number 5 because it's a man and he's in the water. And if I'm not mistaken, they're playing on his character from Baywatch anyway, which is a man of the water.
Yes,
so it counts, right?
He's a water soldier.
Okay. All right, Brian, you're number 4.
So my number 4, I think my list is going to be completely different than what you guys are expecting because this is not necessarily men of water, but just scenes that take place in water with men.
Okay, all right.
So this is an action sequence that takes place underwater. This is Jackie Chan and Jackie Chan's First Strike, also known as Police Story 4. They're in an aquarium. And
stop looking over here and look at Brad.
They're in an aquarium, Darren, and and he fights a bunch of bad guys underwater that has an aquarium full of sharks, actually. And of course, we all know Jackie Chan for doing his own stunts, and he was actually in a tank with real
I think this is
sharks.
a better pick, Brian.
Better in Pacific Rim,
Yes.
So I'm getting up there.
I like
getting
this one.
better.
This
Thank
is
you.
a good one.
Thank you. So yeah, I look. Everybody knows I love Jackie Chan from the 90s. I mean, we talk about some of the action stars of that era: Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Seagal. But Jackie Chan was
no Jeff Speakman. You just gonna forget about the Perfect Weapon?
Yeah,
right.
I wasn't a fan.
Michael Dudikoff, baby.
American Ninja.
Yeah, he was one too. But Jackie Chan was my guy. And First Strike, of course, these were all import films that came over that they re-released domestically, and not great. But I went and saw every one of them in the 90s, and I saw this one, and that ending was something.
It was something. That's right. All right.
I do
Good
not
pick.
remember that movie.
Where he fought the guys with the ladder.
I remember that. Yeah, that's the okay. Yeah,
that one.
I don't actually remember the movie though.
Yeah,
plot wise.
No,
I remember the aquarium.
All right, Lisa, your number 4.
My number 4 is not a man who is in the water or a man who.
Bless you.
It's a man releasing his water, and my pick is Jimmy Dugan, played by Tom Hanks, in A League of Their Own.
It's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water, and I remember watching the scene as a child and having just this wave of like embarrassment and humiliation like roll over my body, because in that moment, for one thing, it's we were a close the doors household. heard or watched until that time. Now I do it just for fun. But at that time, I had never heard or watched a man pee. So that was horrible for me and weird and immodest to me.
She'd come over to my house. My dad was taking dumps.
Yeah,
all the time.
Brad grew up in an open door household.
It's like, Dad, I'm eating over here. Close that door.
I have not seen my father naked.
I can't say that.
I have not watched my brothers pee. What can you say?
I mean, I didn't have any brothers pee, but I've definitely seen my dad pee.
Yeah, so that's not how I grew up. That's not how I was raised. I didn't see my mother pee either. Doors closed.
Seen it.
So that was different and strange for me. But also I learned that there is an embarrassing length of time to pee that had not occurred to me before. And another formative memory I have was it must have been in first grade. Because when you're a little kid, in the little kid, they can't make it to go down to the bathroom on the hall. So in the younger grades, kindergarten, first grade, I remember this specifically, there was a restroom attached to the classroom. And so for some reason, my friend Karen Ferry, I used her first and last name, so you can look her up if you want, came into the restroom with me, which was weird because I was just closed door policy. But she was my bestest friend. So I was like, okay, be cool. But then she was like, you pee really loud. And so I was already a little bit self-conscious about the volume that I peed. And now all of a sudden there's an embarrassing length of time to pee. It was just a compounding of neuroses. So, yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing for females. Because for dudes, there's no embarrassing length of time, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, my goodness.
It's just if the longer it is, it's just
the better.
Oh my God.
That morning pee, when you tilt your head back.
Yes.
The ladies' room is a zone of subterfuge and camouflage. In the ladies' room, you hit the blower to make noise so nobody hears you poop or pee. If you're using, especially if you're in middle school, if you're using any kind of sanitary product, as you're unwrapping it, you're you know what I mean? Inside the women's restroom is being woven a web of lies. It's just lies and deceit and shame. Wow. It's a terrible place to be. That's why I'm saying unisex restrooms. Let's open this up.
I'm okay with that.
Y'all need to free yourselves. You have a totally different restroom experience. It's nothing to walk in the bathroom with a men and pass a guy standing at a stall taking a piss, and he pushes his piss out so hard he farts. And he doesn't even know. It just
I high five that dude.
Experience that freedom.
We mushroom stamp collapse.
The only level of freedom you're allowed in a women's restroom is emotional freedom. So if you are going to cry, you will be held by a stranger. If you go to the ladies' restroom to have a cry, they instinctually know, does she need space? Does she need to talk? What's going on? So it's an area of emotional freedom. Also, it's a place where compliments are freely exchanged. I love your top. You're killing it today. But when it comes to farts and pee sounds, and it's just there's just layers of shame.
Your priorities are fucked up. You know y'all can do that other shit outside of the bathroom, right?
No, because the patriarchy is out there.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well,
when we're in the ladies' room, everybody's paid equally. Nobody is judging you by your
when you're in the ladies' room.
People are judging you for the way you look. But
in the ladies' room,
yeah.
So you said there's no judgment in the ladies' room, right?
Well, there's a lot of judgment in the ladies' room, just not by the patriarchy.
Gotcha. All right. That shit's complicated, Lisa. I don't even know what to say after that.
But anyway, Tom Hanks. What a great actor, guys.
I love that dude. All right, Brian, I appreciate your pick. Now, Brad.
I
Brad.
feel judged by the people.
I'm not judged.
Now.
It's eye opening. Like I didn't know that was.
It's a terrible place to be and a wonderful place to be. The latest one.
Is that why you always go in pairs for like emotional support?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense now. Brad,
The fact
your
of the matter
number
is we don't always go in pairs.
4.
My number 4. You know, I think one of the nastiest and most disgusting sounds is somebody drinking a large glass of water.
He is sensitive about that. He
Like,
has some kind of
gulping.
misophonia.
I hate the
phobia.
sound of gulping. And one of the most terrifying experiences cinematically involving a gulping of a large glass of water, a man of water, is Dane DeHaan in A Cure for Wellness, Gore Verbinski's 2016 horror film that I love. But there's a sequence where, you know, he's an executive who's sent to this wellness center to retrieve another executive who's gone into hiding. And at this wellness center, they use water and the consumption of water for his curative purposes. And there's a scene where Dane DeHaan is gulping down a large glass of water. He also has really big lips in the scene too, so those lips are like really all around the rim.
Just in that
glass.
scene, he has big lips.
That's why I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
No, in that scene, his lips are exceptionally large, the way they are filmed, and the way they are wrapping around the rim of that glass. And he is gulping, and the sound design is amazing.
Okay,
and
let me
if
visualize. He's
you-
wrapped around the rim. He's gulping.
and like
His lips are enormous.
the IMAX sound is just, it's cacophonous. It's very loud. And what you know is, as an audience member, you're watching a Gore Verbinski film, you know that this glass of water is dangerous. And there's got to be something wrong. It can't just be a simple glass of water. And he puts the glass down, and there's like an extreme close-up of that rim where his lips just were. And you see this tiny little, almost microscopic worm crawling across the rim of the glass. And you're just like, oh no, he just swallowed a whole bunch of disgusting stuff. And then later in the film, you learn that the individuals are going down into the bowels of the wellness center and being pumped with water that's filled with eels. And the eels are worming their way into their bowels and clearing out all their rotting parts and also just devouring them in a really bad way. But also apparently in a good way too, maybe. I'm not sure.
Sounds like your cup of tea, Brian. You haven't seen that movie?
Nah, I haven't seen
Dane
that.
DeHaan drinks that big glass of water. He is a man of water. He loves that water.
All right. Great pick. I haven't seen that movie since we saw it in the theater. So did I watch it once after that?
We caught like an advanced screening
Yeah.
of it at the Alamo,
Alamo.
and I fell hard for that film.
Yeah.
And I don't think it ended up being on my top 10, even though I said it was definitely going to be on my
Yeah,
top
I remember
10.
that. Yeah.
And I have not watched it since 2016.
Oh, all right. Like me. My number 4 is Deep Star 6, particularly
Dude.
Miguel Ferrer. Did I say his name right?
Sure.
Um,
Farrar? I say
yeah,
Farrar.
Yeah, at the end when he is trying to escape the deep sea lab, and he is in such a rush because he's afraid that he's going to get devoured by the sea creature, that he does not allow the vessel appropriate amount of time to decompress, and so his head explodes. Oh, so he explodes, if I'm not mistaken.
Someone's
Yeah.
like, somebody order a Shamrock Shake?
Yes. No.
Leprechaun Returns is so good. Go to our Weekend Dork. Learn how good Leprechaun Returns is.
So yeah, that's my number pick because that's my number 4 because he explodes, and that movie came out close to when Leviathan came out, so it was another case of, and they both were movies about this these two scientific or expedition groups underwater, and there's some
They're both
life form.
Basically alien knockoffs of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they came out around the same time. So
I prefer Leviathan.
same, but yeah, this one has from RoboCop exploding at the end. So that's my number 4. Brian, your number 3.
So my number 3 goes to a film I talk about a lot from the 90s that you guys always challenge me on. It is
Men of Water.
Bad Boys?
Nicolas Cage.
Con Air?
Oh, Face Off?
Yes.
think so.
Oh,
Oh, because he jumped. Oh.
The end of the film, the boat.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the prison. that
Well,
was in the
no,
water.
I was thinking more so the boat chase scene, but we could also do the prison. That movie is surrounded by water
yeah,
in many ways.
it's very much an
So
Aquaman.
yeah,
kind
thank
of
you. I didn't think about that, but there you go. Okay, so yeah, we got the prison that they are in, which is almost like an Alcatraz type prison, which is in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the ocean, and also the boat chase scene at the end where they are, in the water, of course. I love Face Off, man. This is a movie that I advocate a lot for, even though it may not have stood the test of time to some people.
It
For
definitely
me,
did not.
for me, it has. I think it's still.
okay.
I think it's still
It's
one
no
of
Con Air.
still one of John Woo's best domestically.
No hard target.
I'll challenge you on that slightly. I need to rewatch Hard Target, but I love Face Off. I mean, John Travolta, Nicolas Cage, I think give great performances for Sean Archer and Castor Troy, and yeah, just even those scenes in the prison, like even when Nicolas Cage is escaping the prison and he has to jump, evading those helicopters that are shooting after him, and he jumps into the water. How he swims to land, how he gets back. Don't know. That does literally makes him a man of water.
There you go. There you go. I like this angle.
So yeah, that's my number 3. There you go, Nicolas Cage and Face Off.
They're showing it at the Alamo One Loudon at the end of the year.
This year, next week. Oh wow!
I think it's not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday.
Interesting. I was actually going to put that for one of our still awesomes because that movie is still awesome.
Yeah, I would not fight you. It's a still awesome movie. I'm just saying it's not as good as Hard Boiled or The Killer
Well, no, none of those.
or Hard Target.
All right. Lisa, you're number 3.
I'm having one of those experiences where I know I've seen this movie several times, but now I'm thinking about a particular scene and I'm trying to put the math together in my head of how did it get from point A to point C. But the movie I'm thinking about is It's a Wonderful Life. And the scene I'm thinking about is George and Mary. They go to the school dance together and they're dancing and they're having such a good time together. And then somebody, as a prank, has the key to open the gym floor, and underneath the gym floor is a pool. And everybody else notices that it's open, but because they're so young and in love, they continue dancing until they fall into the pool. And then they continue dancing in the pool. And it's just a really cute and romantic scene. But the scene that has me kind of wondering how this happened was as they're leaving the party, they have robes, I guess, because they got out of their wet clothes. But then somehow Donna Reed gets, I guess, maybe her robe caught on a bush or something. And then her robe comes off and she's hiding behind a bush. And George is she's going please give me my robe back. And he's like, well, now, that's my impression of James Stewart.
That was very good.
Well, now, there's 2 ways we can go with this. I can just have you continue to be humiliated in a bush while I speak loudly. But I can't remember how.
I've seen that movie once, Lisa. I did not like it, and then I forgot it.
Now, in retrospect, I'm finding this scene very menacing. Maybe.
There's a lot of menace in that movie.
Well, he did, then...
He's a monster.
Contemplate suicide.
Yeah, he's a terrible human being.
Yeah, I suppose he is a terrible human being. But in the case of the missing robe, he did get the girl. So
we're not going to be able to answer you, Lisa.
The 50s were a terrible time
Definitely
for
not
all.
directed by John Woo.
But I do find the scene with the pool super cute, even if it ended up in some mild trolling and sexual harassment by James Jimmy Stewart.
All right. I haven't seen that movie either.
You're good.
Donna Reed looks like she doesn't pee loudly or longly.
All right. Brad, you're number 3.
My number 3. So Aquaman. We love Aquaman, right? His powers. He's strong. He swims fast.
Yeah.
And he talks to the fishes, right?
No.
Yeah, he talks to the fishes. You don't
Yeah,
know
he
nothing
does.
about Aquaman.
He goes, "Beep, beep, 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 beep,
He can communicate to all ocean life,
Like
and he
this
can call for help from the ocean.
Like,
And one of my favorite communicators with ocean life is Mr. Spock in Star Trek
Nice.
4, the Search for the Whales.
Yeah.
Also known as the Voyage Home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the future, in the 23rd century, a probe comes to Earth and is wreaking all havoc because it's trying to communicate with a humpback whale, which has been extinct since the latter part of the 20th century. And Kirk and the gang go, "Hey, let's just go back in time. We've done that a lot. A little slingshot around the sun, we'll be good. And let's go collect ourselves some humpback whales." And they pick up the signal of George and Gracie, which are being kept at the aquarium in San Francisco. And Mr. Spock, who's suffering a little bit from his reincarnation on Vulcan, and his Katra being put back into his head, his Genesis body grown head, he sees the whales and he's like, "I'm going to go mind meld with those." And very Aquaman-like dives into the water and communicates with George and Gracie, learns that Gracie is pregnant, and they really need to get them out of the aquarium and save them and take them back to the future.
I haven't seen that movie. Did we watch that one at a Shat Attack?
I
I don't think
don't think so. I tended to do 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I
4,
do love it though.
4 is a great movie. Alamo plays that one probably the most out of all the Star Treks.
4?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because it's the one that everyone's like, "It's so fun, it's time travel, it's goofy." And it's true, it's great. I love that
When
movie.
was the last time they played it?
Last year?
Shit. If they play it again next year, I'm going to see it. Because I haven't seen... I was going to say I haven't seen it since you showed it at a Shat Attack. But if you haven't shown that one, then I haven't seen that one since...
Let's do
close
it.
to when it came on home video.
It Mod Road Trip.
Yeah.
You know I'm always down for Star Trek watching.
Let's do it.
But yeah, Spock is very Aquaman-like.
Nice.
All right. My number 3...
He also wears a robe.
And he wears a robe like Aquaman?
No,
Like
the
George
other...
and-
Like George and...
Just like George and Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Callback.
Yeah. I
got you,
I was
Thank you.
forgetting It's a Wonderful Life as you were talking.
Damn. All right, my number 3 is in fact Leviathan. In particular, the end of it. My list was going to be 5 movies where at the end someone was out to sea, like in Leviathan when he's in the raft, like a Pacific Rim where they're floating in the raft.
I thought you were
like,
going to do like people exploding underwater because of
wish.
pressure. Is
I wish.
Abyss on your list? Because Michael Biehn.
It was on my list, but then I put David Hasselhoff on it because I've used Abyss before.
He got Hasselhoff.
Yeah, but for Leviathan, that as you said, Brett, I do prefer that one mainly because Peter Weller's in it, but also the creature design I love more than Deep Star 6 creature design. But that I love Leviathan as a whole more than Deep Star 6. Anyway,
And it has RoboCop in it.
and it has RoboCop in it and Buckaroo Banzai. So anyway, at the end of that film, the science lab underneath the water is being destroyed or blowing up, and he, as in Deep Star 6, is taking the escape vessel up to the surface. He reaches the surface. He thinks he's clear. The monster comes up. He gets an explosive device,
that monster.
and he says, "Say ah, motherfucker!" and he does a 3-pointer. He actually like flicks the wrist. He hangs his head, and the explosive device goes into the creature's mouth, and that creature explodes, which is endless joy for me as a viewer, as I am strange like that.
You did a good Peter Weller.
Thank you. That's my favorite moment in that, because right before he does it, the camera's behind him and he turns around like this and he has this fucking scowl on his face, and it is so badass. It's a 2-second shot, and when the monster comes up and Peter Weller, the camera's behind him, and he turns towards the camera as he's looking at the creature right before he says it. And it's so dope. So yeah, if you haven't seen that film, check it out. Didn't mean to spoil it for you. If you have seen it, it's worth a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a while. So yeah, that's my number 3, Leviathan. Brian, your number 2.
So my number 2, I'm gonna go to the year 2000.
In the year 2000.
Oh, this is George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg, The Perfect Storm.
Wow.
Yeah,
They were meant to see.
they were. This is exactly what this
This is a good one. This is a good
this
one.
is the most relevant pick. Actually,
I'm getting
yeah,
better.
it's
There you
just I
go.
wish you picked a better movie, but this is a good pick.
The Perfect Storm. That's a good movie.
No, it's not.
Wow.
I'm gonna do the Darren thing. I'm gonna hide behind my microphone.
Well, I
When's the
like.
last time you seen it?
I have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
I
but when
think.
was the last time
That
you
means
watched it?
nothing.
Thank you,
No,
Lisa.
it doesn't. Nah, it's been a minute. Okay, I'll watch it. No, I can't.
No, you can't. You can't afford it.
I can't afford to. I got
January. That's a January
Yeah,
watch.
that's
Yeah.
January. I'm gonna do older films. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
The Perfect Storm. I like the movie. I think it has a great cast. Led by George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. I think John C. Reilly is in it. I know John Hawkes is in it. William Fichtner is in it. It's got, believe William Fichtner is in it, but it's got a great cast. But I mean, it's basically the story about these fishermen in Gloucester, Massachusetts. They come back with a poor catch of fish, and George Clooney convinces. Who is it? Mary Steenburgen, I think it is. I'm not sure, but
No, it's Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
I love
there
her
you
too.
go. There you go.
Also in The Abyss.
Oh yeah. So they go back out and they go past the area that they usually go to catch catch the fish, and they go deeper out into sea. Right at the point where you have this massive tropical storm. I think it's like 3 massive tropical storms that are all kind of converging on each other.
It's a real perfect storm.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm, and they get caught out there. And unfortunately, this is based on a true story, and they all died. Sad ending. There's no
But luckily, we have their very detailed accounts for
Yes.
the making of this film.
for the making of this film. Absolutely.
From beyond the grave. Needless to say, the journals were damp.
They were. They could only recover a few pages, but they were able to get something out of there. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed the film for what it
Directed
was.
by Wolfgang Peterson.
Well,
if
yeah,
I'm not mistaken.
Wolfgang Peterson,
Yeah.
who does like to do a lot of movies with
Under
water.
the water, yeah.
Master and Commander.
Poseidon.
No, Master Commander was done by Peter Weir.
You sure?
Well,
Yeah.
I think Brian's right. Actually.
It was Peter Weir.
But Wolfgang Peterson was Poseidon, right? The Poseidon remake.
yes, I believe it was.
Oh yeah, is that the one with Kurt Russell in
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
The
wasn't
good version of that movie.
That wasn't that great. I don't
Correct.
believe. Correct with that. Oh, the Poseidon.
Yeah, Poseidon is not that good,
No.
and it is the better version of that movie.
Oh, okay.
Damn. All right.
Pop, pop, pop. Shots fired.
Wife Dork, your
Yes.
number 2.
My number 2, it's kind of an obvious pick, but it's also was my favorite movie of 2017. So I'm going to try to throw a little bit of a curveball. So I'm going to go Elsa Esposito, played by Sally Hawkins, in The Shape of Water. And I'm going to
That's a great Guillermo del Toro pick about a man of water.
Yeah, it's an obvious pick.
Damn. Not that obvious, huh?
Brian likes to go off the beaten path.
I
ain't
do.
lying, like a motherfucker.
I do.
We can definitely say that he is scraping a barrel. A barrel of what? We don't know.
I can tell you what it possibly filled with. Anyway, your pick. Lisa.
So I'm going to speak specifically of the consummation of their relationship when they let the bathtub spill over and
Fill the bathroom.
fill the bathroom all the way to the ceiling, and they have a beautiful consummation of their relationship and a horrible plumbing issue. But that begins her transformation into being a woman of the water.
Okay.
And I just love that movie, and any opportunity to speak about it. I think it's a really beautiful movie and metaphor for life. So, yep.
All right, great pick. All right.
Plus, I love that scene where she's describing what it was like, and she makes the two clam shells with her hands to explain his red fish rocket.
Oh. All right. Okay. Brad, you're
I wonder if he spawns
That's my
like
band
a
name.
seahorse. I wonder if he spawns like a seahorse and she'll release his eggs and then he'll tuck them in his pouch. Doug Jones.
I wonder as well. Brad, you're number 2.
For my number 2, again, I'm going to Aquaman, the source, and that Jason Momoa persona that he brings to this version of Aquaman. I feel like Jason Momoa's entire being comes from this movie, and that is Catherine Bigelow's Point Break. In particular, Bodhi, played by Patrick Stewart, a true man of the water.
Yes.
A warrior of the water, a surf ninja in a lot of ways. Bodhi is like this Zen dude who's in touch with the earth through its waters. He's super cool, and Johnny Utah, Keanu Reeves, looks up to him. And even though he may be committing all kinds of crimes with the ex-presidents robbing banks, there's something peaceful and natural about Bodhi's lifestyle as a man of the water, and he becomes smitten with Bodhi. He wants to fight him and take him down because that's what his job requires of him. He has a sense of justice, Johnny Utah, but at the end of the day, when he confronts the man of the water in front of his ocean with the great wave, where it looks like a perfect storm of sorts is waiting out there, rather than take him in handcuffs, he says, "Go ahead, fight your whale. Take on your wave. Be the Aquaman." And,
Is that the director's cut?
Yeah, that's the director's cut.
Okay. Let me get that on Blu-ray. Let me borrow it.
And Bodhi was almost my number one because he's such a perfect distillation of a man of the water.
So you're talking about the remake or the original?
The original.
Okay.
The original.
What'd you think of the remake?
I never saw it.
Was it Edgar Ramirez? He plays Bodhi?
Edgar Ramirez. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one had a lot of sky jumping in it.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
Not a lot of water.
I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen the show.
Yeah.
All right. That was a great pick.
Yeah.
I know your number one.
My number two is...
Triple X.
Yeah.
What? He's a man of the water?
Yeah, get ready. I got to talk about it on my
All
number
right.
one. Spoilers, Brian. Jeez.
That was going to be my number one. All right, well, I'll change it. My number two is Robert Shaw my number two is actually Thomas Jane and LL Cool J from Deep Blue Sea. Again, this is from when my list was entirely comprised of people floating at sea at the end of the movie. As in Leviathan and also Deep Star 6, because that also happens in Deep Star 6.
Yeah.
The survivors are floating at the sea.
And in Pacific Rim.
It was Pacific Rim was going to be number 5.
Oh.
Yeah. But then,
Stole it.
Yeah, you can have that one. But anyway, so look, Deep Blue Sea, I still think that's a fun movie. We just talked about that not too long ago. I want to say Billy had it.
Fistful of Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was a fun time at the movies. I remember my theatrical screening of that film, particularly that moment that was on Billy's Fistful when Sam Jackson surprisingly is murdered by the shark and torn in half by the other shark. But even outside of that, this is one of those. It's directed by Rennie Harlan. And we were talking about this particular Fistful in light of The Long Kiss Goodnight. While this movie is not as good as The Long Kiss Goodnight, I still think that there is entertainment in it. In the movie, if you haven't seen it, there are scientists out at sea at a sea lab mucking with nature and trying to enhance what is already the ultimate friggin' predator. And that does not work out, as it never does. And so they must contend with a super shark. And with that premise, I mean, it's going to be silly, goofy, and the movie delivers on that. But it does so in a coherent way, I think. And,
And has the greatest title track of all time.
Deepest Bluest, my head is like a shark's fin. Yeah. I can't deny that. Shout out to my brother Zach, who I'm going to put you on blast, Jimmy. When he was little... I mean little, him and my sister were in the basement, and he was pantomiming that song, Deepest Bluest, and he had my sister squirt, because in the video for Deepest Bluest, LL Cool J's rapping, and there are these spouts of water off screen, like hitting him while he's rapping. So Zach was rapping that song, and he had my sister squirting him to reenact that video. That shit was hilarious. Like, what made you think to do that, Zach? That was so funny. I love him for that. Yeah. So yeah, that's my number two. Deep Blue Sea. Brian, you're number one.
All right, so my number one is
wait. Is there water? Is it something take place in Kill Bill?
No.
Well, there's a lot of in the restaurant sequence after she's killed the Crazy 88 gang. There are those flat pools of water that are filled with blood and body parts.
Could be.
The snow scene, all snow is
frozen
technically
water.
water.
Frozen
As is blood.
Blood,
Yeah.
A pool of blood. Yeah.
Okay.
Is Deadpool your the man of water?
No, you're all wrong. You're all wrong. Good try though. Anyway, so my number one is one of my favorite movies of all time. It takes place around water, but it's more about this character has a fear of water, so he has to overcome it. It is The Truman Show. It is Jim Carrey in The Truman Show. So basically the premise of this is that they've built this dome where they have a 24-hour show, and that they pulled the character of Truman in, and to keep him kind of secluded into this dome, they create this fear of water, the fear of the ocean, so that he will never go into the water, so he can never leave to get to the end of the dome. So he decides to kind of overcome this fear. And at the end of the movie, he takes a sailboat, and Christoph, played by Ed Harris, is able to control the weather and control a lot of some of the environments around in this dome, and he just creates this huge storm, these huge tidal waves, to try to get Truman to turn around to come back. But he forges through, and he gets to the end. And one of the most beautiful endings to a movie I think I've ever seen. But it's just that sequence at the end of the film when he's at sea in that sailboat trying to forge through to get away from, I forget where he's trying to go, Fiji, I think he was trying to get to. So yeah, Truman Show, absolutely.
God, that is
Love
directed
that
by
movie.
Peter Weir.
That's directed by Peter Weir. But he did Master and Commander. He did that too.
What year did that come out?
98.
Okay, because that movie is still awesome. I would kill to see that.
It's on Brian's list.
Yeah, it was on my list.
That's gonna.
We
Scream.
need to see that because think about it's so funny. 98. Think about the conceit of that movie, the concept of that movie, an artificial world, an artificial life that other people on the outside are watching for entertainment. And where we are, like in our society, on our phones, and following people on Instagram, and these lives that may or may not be artificial, but we are compelled to follow them. And how there's a documentary on Netflix now called American Meme about how people who are in that culture, how they feel isolated. The people who have to live for the gram and post things and
the
get
film
their likes
Cam,
and stuff.
which came out recently, is very much about
Focus on
that
it,
too.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see Truman Show, but to see how as a society, like we kind of,
We've kind of come to that point.
emphasize that. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I would like to watch that movie again on the big screen. That's a good pick.
It's awesome.
Jim Carrey made me cry. Man, his performance at the end is so good when he's pounding on that wall.
Yeah, when he touches it and and then his reaction to that, it breaks me every time. Yeah. It's a great
so
ending.
good.
I have not seen it since the theater.
Really?
Shit.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. Andy, come on, man, please.
Yeah. Wife Dork. Is your number one head when he jumps off the bridge into the water?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Darren. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, though. Also a musical. Also tremendously influential on my life. And it is Miss Piggy in the Great Muppet Caper, the synchronized swimming scene.
She's not a man. I'm joking.
Okay.
You
That's
gave
true.
me like a death stare.
She is man and as in part of humanity.
There you go.
So there you go. Yeah. I was like, what reference are you making? Did somebody mistake her for a man in the Great Muppet Caper that I don't understand? She could never be mistaken as a man. She is seen as what she truly is, which is a hot piece of ass in this movie. And Nikki Holiday, played by Charles Grodin.
Yep.
Yeah.
His level of attraction to her, like, is just so guttural. He is so overwhelmed by her beauty that it breaks his heart to betray her. But him and his supermodel accomplices who stole Lady Holiday's necklace use Miss Piggy's desire to be a fashion model like they are to manipulate her. So, and they tell her that one of the models is sick and will not be able to go on. So Miss Piggy has to take her place. And so Miss Piggy has this beautiful fantasy sequence where she is in this synchronized swimming scene where she is just a water goddess and she's swimming through the water and she looks so radiant. And the climax of the scene is there's this huge tower of water that lifts from the pool, and she has a crown of sparklers, and there is Kermit the Frog on one side singing an ode to Miss Piggy, and then Charles Grodin on the other side singing passionately about Miss Piggy, and then she breaks into this gorgeous swan dive off of this tower of water, but in actuality, she tripped in the fashion show and she fell in the water, and they used that as an opportunity to bring her a robe, and they slipped Lady Holiday's necklace into the pocket of her robe, and therefore she is framed. And but to me, like the way that Charles Grodin looked at her in that movie, like even as a child I was like, that's a little dirty and inappropriate, but I would love to be looked at that way, and Miss Piggy needs to be such like an exquisite beauty to ever be looked at that way. And I was kind of I was totally like, I was kind of disappointed that they somehow didn't end up together in the end of that movie. I don't know why. I always missed the actual plot of the movie, and I'm like, how come these two aren't kissing? But that's why, like, when I think about, like when I was a child, I found Miss Piggy to be just so beautiful. She had shiny hair and perfect skin, and she always had the coolest clothes. Her eyebrows, her eyelashes were always curled. Her eyeshadow was always pristine, and it didn't matter to me that she was a pig. I just thought that, like, it was not ironic to me. I was like, no, she's completely beautiful, and when I grow up, I want to be beautiful like Miss Piggy. And she's still my fashion icon to this day, frankly. I think, I just love Miss Piggy.
You know, I think Miss Piggy, as a kid, I think Miss Piggy was my first exposure, one of the my very first exposures to a woman who was so forward and confident and super passionate and aggressive.
Right.
I think that was I can't remember on whether it be TV or movies. I can't remember another female person or personality that imparted that on me. And I remember, because there weren't a lot, and because it was Miss Piggy, I remember it feeling very singular and unique and confusing. Not mainly confusing. It's just because I didn't know women like that in real life, and so I would always wonder, like, are grown ladies like really like that? Especially when I was little, and it made me afraid.
Oh, really? Well, the thing is, like, if you watch like early Miss Piggy, like in the beginning of the Muppets, and particularly the beginning of the Muppet Show, it is really played to caricature, and she looks a lot different. She looks, in my opinion, a lot uglier in the early versions, and she has this penchant for violence when she does not get her way. But I like how over time, her character has softened a lot, and it's played for caricature less. And even though they, like, her and Kermit have this on again, off again relationship where she is the pursuer and he is kind of trying to rebuff her. I like that, particularly in the films. Eventually, you get the sense that, Kermit has a genuine love
yeah.
for Miss Piggy, and
Yeah.
ultimately she's right, and they really are meant to be together, and they complement each other because Kermit is so soft-spoken and meek, and I think being Muppets, they know what it's like to be an outsider. I think that and they've been through so much together. I think that they really get and understand each other and find each other genuinely beautiful, which I think is wonderful.
And as a kid, that was something that was apparent to me, though, that the whole opposites attract thing, even though if I wasn't tuned in or acute to that actual concept, just the fact that he's more quiet and soft-spoken, but she's more outspoken, but how they complemented each other. Even as a young person, like I understood the appeal and the value in their relationship in that. And
she's proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Like in The Great Muppet Caper, she has her portfolio and she's out and she's going to be a model, even though she's not like the typical model type. And when Kermit walks in, she successfully poses as Lady Holiday and has him fooled. And when she finds out about the caper, she's the one. She gets the motorcycle off of the truck and drives the motorcycle through that glass window. And she's a freaking badass. Who wouldn't want to be Miss Piggy?
Yep.
Total babe.
Yep, great pick. All right, did you do a pun like for Babe Pig in the City?
I did not, but I appreciate you pointing it out.
Thank you. B, your number one in your fistful of men of the sea.
Men of water.
Of water, sorry.
Yeah, this one's a man of the lagoon. And by man, I mean a creature.
Gotcha.
It's the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Shout out to Faye.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the Gill Man from the Creature from the Black Lagoon is, without a doubt, my favorite monster design. I love, love, love the look of this creature. Originally designed by Disney animator Millicent Patrick, although her work is often downplayed. Yes.
That's dope.
That's right. And because of the time, because she was her work was downplayed for makeup artist Bud Westmore. He ended up getting sole credit on the design of the creature, but it originally started with her work, her pencil work. And Millicent Patrick has contributed to a lot of great movies. One of my other favorite creature designs of all time is the Metaluna mutant from This Island Earth. That's hers as well.
Shit.
The creature himself was performed by Ben Chapman, or at least all the scenes on land, and then the underwater sequences were performed or swum by Rico Browning. A lot of work went into bringing this little beast to life, and I love all the hands that touched it. And Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's a pretty simple movie, but those sequences with the creature, the Gill Man, and actress Julia Adams are like thrilling and absolutely iconic, and you can totally understand why somebody would want to have the creature's face tattooed all over their body, posters after posters after posters, toys after toys after toys made of this design. You've seen it interpreted in other ways. The Amphibian Man is certainly a version of the Creature from the Black Lagoon in the shape of water. Monster Squad is probably the most famous and best reinterpretation of the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Absolutely.
I love what Tom Woodruff did in that film with that design. But it has not been topped. The Gill Man from the original film, there's just no beating that design. It's like Godzilla, right?
Yeah.
They perfected it on film one, and you can tweak it and you can play around with it and you can spin it on its head, but you can't top the original Godzilla and you can't top the original Gill Man.
Great pick.
He's no Miss Piggy though.
No. My number one is a genuine man of water, of the sea, of the ocean, and it is Davy Jones, as played by Bill Nye in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Another good design.
Yeah, that character design with the octopus tentacles on the face, the level of detail and the mastery of CGI work that ILM does in those films. Another film by Gore Verbinski is incredible. Bill Nye's performance as Davy Jones is astounding.
It was a big deal when that film happened. Like that mocap performance, that was huge.
Oh man, and because that character is such a tragic and sympathetic character, but also he has to be scary, and Bill Nye, he has to have all of these things come across from behind this layer of digital wizardry and these tentacles. So there's no lips to show anger expression. A lot of it is in his eyes, and even though those eyes are surrounded by fleshy, slimy, octopus looking visage, Bill Nighy's humanity comes through in it, and I think it just makes for a really cool character. Just the mythology of that character. If you kill him, you have to take over as captain of the Flying Dutchman. I love that Jack Sparrow is willing to do that because he loves the sea so much. Jack Sparrow was almost my pick, my number one. But I love the creativity in that design. For a film franchise that hangs its budget and its hat on its lead star Johnny Depp and his portrayal of Jack Sparrow, for them to introduce that character with such a strong visual aesthetic and even have that carry over and follow through in the following subsequent film, I don't know. That was the movie that got me into the franchise. I don't know how I ended up seeing the second one first, but when I was I saw that in the theater when I was stationed in New York, at Fort Drum, and I saw that movie. And the end of that, I immediately wanted to see the sequel, and go back and rewatch the original. But yeah, that Bill Nighy's performance, the motion cap performance, he has the peg leg, and even outside of just his face, just the barnacles on him, just a wonderful character, just the creature design. So yeah, that's my number one. You can hit us up on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at @ItModcast. Let us know what your top 5 men of water are. You know what? I'm confused, Brad, because I'm pretty sure I still have the text conversation on here. I think Brian suggested the title.
He did.
What did you say? What did you suggest?
Men at Sea.
Men at Sea. Yeah. And you were like, oh, that's a great title. I love that. So that's
But of course, Brad cannot leave well enough alone.
Correct.
So I didn't get the memo of it shifting over. So I was thinking Men at Sea.
It's the same text chain.
Yeah. Guess what? I like Men of Water. I decided I liked Men of Water right before you came over, and that's what I went with.
All right. Well, if you have you can hit us up at @MyCast and let us know what your top 5 Men of Water or Men at Sea are, so we can continue the conversation. You can follow that guy at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. You can follow that young lady, maybe or maybe not, synchronized swimming, at Sidewalk Siren and at Baked Dork on Twitter and Instagram, and she's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd. That guy is Brad Gullickson at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. No, he is at Mouth Dork. Did I say Brad Gullickson or did I say Mouth Dork?
Dude, I don't even know.
He is at Mouth Dork on all social medias, as I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go check out Aquaman and Bumblebee and
Mary Poppins Returns.
We will be talking about some of these films, if not all of them, in our Weekend Dork. Our review cast will be for...
There's no review cast. There's no Weekend Dork. Because it's the end of the year, Darren.
It's the end of the year.
What's coming out Monday?
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be releasing our Not Top 10 in preparation. We got to get that list out of the way because the dorkies are coming. So those are going to be our top 10 films of the year.
So are we releasing it in halves?
Yes. So next week, we're going to have the Not Top 10 Part 1.
Yep.
And then the Not Top 10 Part 2. And then the week after that, we're going to have the Dorkies Part 1 and the Dorkies Part 2. These are our end of the year epic episodes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that WB Das, the indie dork, is back in good health for those episodes because his insight is essential.
Yes, it is. So we hope you feel better, Billy. You got to get right so you can get on the podcast and get your top 10 out there and your not top 10 out there. Ladies and gentlemen, you can have yours ready because after we drop ours, we can discuss yours on social media. So that's going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go watch some more movies. And until next time.